And that's okay. Okay. So what I want to look at this morning is really that very strange narrative of the taking of dinner, because it comes up with so many difficult spaces and things that I think it's worthwhile having a look at and seeing where we can just understand it better. The whole story, it starts off, we know, with dinner going to like see what's going on. She's very inquisitive, and Chazal don't, or at least Rashi printing Chazal don't admire that inquisitive nature of hers. They say she went out, and it was clear she kind of like follows her mother's ways of going out, and it seems to be pretty negative. But having said that, what I really want to look at is just what happens and how it happens, and a couple of lessons I think that we can try and learn out of that. So the Torah says, it's chapter 34, Perek Lamed Daled, and the Torah speaks about Vataytze Dina Bat Leah Sheyalda Yaakov Lirot Bivnot Kan. She goes out to see what's going on with the people, and then it says these words: Vayar Ota Shchem ben Chamor Achivi. Shchem, the son of Chamor, of the Chiva troops there, he sees her. He's in the Siaretz. He's one of the chiefs of the country. Vayikachota, and he takes her. Vayishkavota, and he sleeps with her. Vayanea, and he makes it difficult for her. So it's clear that whatever he did in a very forceful way. He raped her, we would call it today. And the Ibn Ezra says that he just, he defiled her completely. The woman comes from the little girl. She's a little girl, effectively, comes from this home of a holiness, of Kedusha, and he just takes her and rapes her. It's a terrible, terrible action that he does. And what happens is that even though he does this, the Torah continues and says, "V'tidbak nafsho b'dina." He suddenly has this like desire to marry her. And he speaks to her. So the Sforno says that what's fascinating is he compares the story, the rape of Dinah, with the story of Tamar. Now, Tamar, not the Tamar of Yehuda's side, but the story of Amnon and Tamar. So the story of Amnon and Tamar is a very important story, because if we read through that story, it's in Shmuel Bet. The story is quite it's quite a crazy story, and I think it's important to look at, just at least to contrast. So Avshalom is the son of David, and he has this beautiful sister whose name is Tamar. And Amnon, who is also the son of David from a different mother, okay, he becomes infatuated with Tamar. So you've got this beautiful woman, and you've got Amnon. So Amnon he's like completely lovesick, and Amnon could never do anything with her. He physically desires her. He neshomatically desires her, whatever it is. But he has a friend named Yonadav, and Yonadav, who is the son of David's brother Shima. So Yonadav, therefore, is a cousin, and Yonadav is a very bright person, very clever, very is a Baal Eitzah. Somebody gives advice. So Amnon goes and tells Yonadav what's going on, because Yonadav says to him, "Why are you so sad? What's going on?" He says, "You know what? I'm in love with Tamar." So Yonadav says to him, "So what do you want to do?" He says, I just want to be with her. So he says, okay, you know what? I've got an idea. Let's create a plan. And these are the words that he says: lie down on your bed, pretend that you're sick, and when your father comes to see you, say, "Please, can Tamar come and give me something to eat?" Okay, and maybe she'll come and she'll prepare the food, and she'll bring it to me, and hopefully I'll feel better, because it's nice to be waited on. So he lies down, pretends to be sick. David HaMelech comes. He asks him to bring Tamar to come and to help him out. She had a reputation of being like a good cook. Not clear why David HaMelech would accept the bringing of Tamar. Anyway, so David tells Tamar to come. She comes to the house. She takes dough and she makes it into nice cakes for him, and she cooks up these cakes, and it's beautiful. She takes the pan and she brings it to Amnon, and Amnon says, "I'm so sick, I can't eat." And he tells everybody to leave. He says, "I don't want everybody to see me in such a distraught state." So everybody leaves except, of course, Tamar. And he says to Tamar, "Maybe if you bring me the food on your own, just come and help me and feed me, then it'll be easier for me to eat." So what does she do? So she comes and she brings me the cake. And as she starts serving him, he takes hold of her, and he says to her, "Come and lie with me." She says, "But you're my brother." And he uses the same words that are going to be done later. She says, "We don't do things in these kind of things as Am Yisrael, that a brother and sister sleep together. That's not the way to do it, right?" Her words are, the words that she uses are, "Al ta'aseh ka'nevala hazot." Don't do such a terrible, disgusting things. Ki lo yaseh kan Yisrael. That's not what we do. So, and then she says to him, because what's going to happen if that happens? I'm going to carry such shame. Okay, please, rather, let's do this properly. Let's get married. But he won't listen to it. And what does he do? He says exactly the same words are used. It says, number one, he overpowers her and he lies with her with force. By the way, it's a different order, but let's leave it for the moment. And then it says the most unbelievable thing, and this is the contrast that the Sforno brings with Shem. He's now totally besotted with her. But with Amnon and Tamar, look at what the Torah, the Tanakh says the following: Vayisnea Amnon sin'a gadol amod. He hated her. He hated her with such an unbelievable hatred. More hatred than he loved her. And he says to get out of here. So here's this man. He's just raped this woman, and then who he was totally besotted with. He tells her to get out. She says to him, "Please, how can you do this? This is even worse than what you did from the first time." And he gets her and he kicks her out, and he totally kicks her out and he doesn't want anything to do with her. So Tamar, eventually she takes off her clothes, to her beautiful clothes, and she puts sackcloth on dust on her hair, and she really goes through screaming and shouting about. She's screaming and she's shouting and she's really terribly upset about this. So you can imagine. Here is Amnon, who initially wanted her, now he doesn't want her at all, and it's all a disaster about it. This, by the way, is the source of the concept of yichud. Where you're not, where a man and a woman are not married, are not supposed to be together because of what could happen, and it could be a bit overpowered. But so that's the beginning of the story. It's a very, 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 very sad story. And obviously you can imagine now Avshalom and Amnon, these two brothers, obviously they never speak to each other again because of what happened. But that is the one side, the rape of Tamar, okay, which causes absolute destruction amongst the house of David. That's the one thing. Comes along the Sforno, as we said, and the Sforno says that what happens here with Shem is the complete opposite. Here he rapes Dinah, and what does he do? And now he actually wants to marry her. Why does he want to marry her? He wants to marry her, it says, because she's Dinah bat Yaakov. It's not because she's a beautiful girl, all these other things, the way other people approach it. It's bishvil sha'ata bat Yaakov anichbad be'einei umot. Because you know what? She had covet. She brought covet with her. And it's unbelievable that the reason why he wants her now, he realizes who she is because he wants the covet. He wants to be associated with Yaakov Avinu. Yaakov is a big hero. So So he tries to convince her that everything is okay, and that because the way Rashi presents it is that she was upset that now no one's going to want to marry her, and he says, no, it's fine, I'll marry you because I want to marry you. And it's a whole story. And then he goes to his father, and he says to his father, I want this girl as a wife. And his father says, father's going to now go speak to Yaakov. So I just want to stop there. I don't even know if we're going to get to much more than this, because what's going on in that whole environment? Because did anybody know about this? Did anybody see it? Did anybody engage with this whatsoever? Surely this is the daughter of Yaakov, who is a princess. I mean, she's like the crown princess, walking into this place. People would have seen her. How could you just take her without anybody spotting it, anybody seeing it? So there are different opinions. The one is that the Ibn Kaspi and the Barbanel say that the people of Shechem didn't say anything against it when it happened, and they're actually complicit in that act, and because of that, things are going to unfold. The Or HaChaim says that they not only were silent, but they actively participated in taking Dinah. They were part of the kidnapping of Dinah itself. And whereas the Tosfos that say that that it was it's terrible, like what happened in Israel a few weeks ago, that it was actually the whole town were participated in this terrible gang rape of Dinah. So it's not clear exactly what happened, different approaches, different ways, but what does happen is for sure, and the way the Netziv presents it is Yaakov Shamaki Tima Dinah Bito. Yaakov hears that this man Shechem was Matame Dinah. So the Netziv points out something interesting, that the Torah refers to Shechem as the son of the leader of that area. So he's royalty in inverted commas. Yaakov says ki Timei Dinah Bito, and the Netziv says, what does it mean Timei? He defiled her, he made her impure. Is that the way Tumah works with a woman who is not married? She's not married, she's a Penuya, she can get married to anybody she wants. But why is it Tameh? It's Tameh because he was below her. He was below her in value. Here she's the princess of Yaakov Avinu, and here you're talking about this little Shlep Shechem, and he is Matameh her. He tells her, but when he heard about it, his sons are in the fields with all their flocks. And Yaakov doesn't say a word. He doesn't say anything. He keeps quiet until the sons come home. Different people say different things as to why he did this, but the Netziv says the reason why he kept quiet is because he didn't want to make it known how upset he was, because if it had been known how upset he was, he wouldn't have been able to then create this outcome which he wanted to create. So let's just go through and see what happens. So Chamor goes now. The pasuk tells us. Pasuk number 6, verse 34. The Torah says, "Vayetze Chamor Yavishchem El Yaakov ledaber." Chamor, the father of Shechem, goes to Yaakov to chat to him. He's going to go and try and make the shidduch. Why does he go now? Because he's thinking, according to this foreigner, he's thinking, well, Yaakov's keeping quiet. Well, what is he thinking about? Let me go. Let's go schmooze. We have a drink. We sort it out and work things out. Wow. Bnei Yaakov are in the sadeh. They're in the field. And somehow they get word of what happened. And what do? They come back. They're very atzuf. They're very sad. What does that mean that they were sad? So Rashi says, Itzbon hu, sorry, not Rashi, the Netziv says, Itzbon hu shiflis ba'einayim atzmam. They felt so distressed because they felt as if they were to blame for what had happened. They weren't there to protect their baby sister. And since they weren't there to protect their baby sister, they take it on themselves. That's the first emotion that they feel. The second emotion is Vayichar lahem ma'od. and they get so angry. Why are they so angry? Because כי נבלה עשה בישראל לשכב את בת יעקב, וכן לא יעשה. This is a navala, it's a disgusting thing. What they did what he did, what Shem did, to lishkav et bat Yaakov, to take this, to lie with Yaakov's daughter. V'chein lo yaseh. Such a thing is not done. No, this is not the way of behaving. That you would go without a proper kiddushin, without a proper marriage, without a proper process. It's not the way to do. The Netziv says, says even if it was a known thing that you could rape a young girl who's not yet married in any way. You could rape her. It's not appropriate that an ordinary person would take the daughter or the princess of the kings. She says, yeah, hold on. He says, Shem didn't worry about the strength of Yaakov and his sons, right? Why? Because he didn't know about how strong they were. They were these shepherds out in the fields, these nomadics, this like kind of like nomadic tribe, right? And he's the king of the world here. He knew that Yaakov was a special man. Not about his strength, but he knew about his kedusha, his sanctity, the message that he's bringing into the world. Right? He says, and because he wasn't so, he didn't fear this level of Yaakov. This is a big point here. Because he didn't fear who Yaakov was, you can't really make him so blameworthy. They found themselves guilty. Why? Because in them they did not present themselves as they should have, because the pasuk says, the pasuk says that when a Jew behaves himself as a Jew, when a Jew fulfills the words of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then what happens is Shem Hashem Nikra Alehem. That the name of Hashem is embedded in them, and people will have awe and reverence for them and will not behave in an inappropriate fashion. But here you didn't get Shem feeling that. So if Shem didn't feel that, it means that the sons of Yaakov did not present with total integrity, they felt. Because if they had presented themselves with total integrity into who they were, this would never have happened. Cain, they felt they felt bad about the fact that they had behaved in a way that wasn't 100%. That such thing could happen within the Jewish people. He says also, what does it mean that such a thing cannot be done? It says that the truth is, even if in a general rule it was okay for people to sleep around. I mean, a man meets a girl and they sleep around, they not get married, as happens in the world in which we live today. Even if that would be okay, what certainly is not okay is the fact that they already feel guilty about the fact that he didn't feel that there was a barrier between him and the daughter of Yaakov, because they didn't present themselves properly. But certainly to rape her in such a vicious way, absolutely unacceptable, and that's why they get so angry. But so angry, and they are wherever they are. They haven't yet arrived to Yaakov, and they angry and angry. They come there. And Vayidaber Chamor itam, and Chamor meets them. Remember, he's the father. He meets them as they're coming into Yaakov, and he says to them, together with Yaakov, Shem bani chashkan nafshoy bevitchem. My son Shem, his chashkan nafshoy desires. He has such a deep emotional desire for your daughter. Please give it to him. Let him marry her. So it seems to be like it's all normal. The Netziv points out he doesn't mention what happened. He doesn't mention anything. He doesn't say sorry. He doesn't engage with him. He doesn't in any way, shape, or form bring up the past. So he just says, okay, let's get them married. Oh, what a wonderful idea. Let's get them married. Which is very strange if you really think about it, that he would do such a thing. But okay. And then he says, you know what? My son wants to marry your daughter. And you know, it's a great precedent. Great idea. You know what? We'll take your daughters, and you take our daughters. Gewaldig. This is just like the beginning of this coming together, you know, of creating this new rebuilt community. You guys, your men with our daughters, and your daughters with our men. How wonderful! You can imagine. It's something that would be such a. It's, you know, we battle against this every day, always, and we have to try and understand what is it that he's trying to do. The Netziv points out something so important. He says, "Hitchatnu otanu benotechem titnu lanu." Says, give us your daughters, and we're et benotenu tikchu lachem, and you take our daughters. Lo pirshu leisha. He says, you know what, we used to it. We'll just sleep all around. He said, you take our daughters and do whatever you want with them. We want to have your daughter, and that you see immediately that there is a whole different ashkafat hachaim, the way they deal with things completely differently from the way we would deal with them at home. Then he says, and not only that, says, come and settle, we'll have a nice, we'll dwell together, and you know what? You can go, you can move around, you can, this can be your place where you can really build up your wealth and everything else that you want. And buy land here, obviously from us, because that's all part of the process. He's trying to make himself wealthy and trying to give himself covered. And Shechem says to her father and to her brothers, says, you know what? Whatever it was, right? Whatever, I want to find favor in your eyes. And whatever you ask me for, I will give you. It's clear that he's just going on his own little monologue over here, telling what he would like to do. Because he says, what? He says, Mohar Matan means the price. Whatever the price is, make it as big as you want. Vetnan, I'll give it to you. Whatever you want, I will do. Just give me this woman as the wife for my son, for me, for Shem. So it's the Netziv points out, take it. So I want to do it now. Let's do it quickly. So now, what are they going to do? They need to think about what they're going to do. We don't know where they sat. We don't know where they discussed that. But there seems to be that they would have come and they had a discussion. And they speak back to Shechem and his father, Bemirma. Bemirma means in a deceptive way. Why do they do it? Because this is the man who was Matame Dina. And he's Matame Dina. He completely just tried to uproot the Kedusha of Dina. So therefore, they're going to speak to him in a different way. And what did they say? Look who's speaking. This is Yaakov's sons. Yaakov doesn't have a role to play in this. Yaakov is not the protagonist in this deception, but rather it's the brothers. The brothers say, "Lo nuchal la'asot davar." We could not do such a thing. La'tet et achotenu le'ish asher lo orla. So, oh, you've got an orla. You know that our family all have brit milah. Now you got to also have circumcisions. That concept of the orla is a cherpa. It's disgraceful for us. Which means that it says in the Tziv Mashma, if he would have been bris, that if he would have been bris, even if the whole nation wasn't bris, it would have been okay. It was impossible for us to become one nation, especially since everybody is still uncircumcised. So you know what? This is the way we're going to do it. Great condition. And that is imtiyu kamonu limol lachem kol zachar. The way to do it is that in order to be able to cement this relationship, you have to go himol lachem kol zachar. You have to go and make sure that every male is brised, which is quite a thing. Himol lachem kol zachar. And then they say, when that happens, we'll give our daughters to you, and we'll take your daughters, and we'll dwell with you, and will become am echad. Crazy. You can see, we know what happens. Certainly they would never become one am echad with them, but that's really, it completely gets into what it is that Shechem and Hamor want. They want this relationship. They want the kavod. Says, and if you don't, what if you don't want to you don't have a bris? You know what we'll do? Then we'll leave. Simple. Doesn't seem to be anything so nefarious or anything bad. This is the deal. Either you're going to do what we want you to do or not. Says the Netziv, we'll take our daughter. We're talking about dinner, obviously. Dinah was not just Stam, another child of Yaakov. The brothers are saying, we will take our daughter. So he says it's implied that she was like the daughter of everyone. And therefore, there's a concept that the Netziv says that that a father will do anything for a child, especially for a daughter. He'll be Moshe Nefesh himself. He will go to the end of the world to make sure that his daughter is okay. Either he'll kill or he'll be killed. But here you have this whole group of these 11 brothers who are saying she's like our daughter, which means we are prepared to do anything for her like our daughter. If that's the case, Lo yiyeh aleihem likach et dinah lemasa b'chazaka. So you understand, for us to go and take dinner, we'll take her. It's not a big thing for us to take dinner. Why? Because why would anybody stand up to them to fight against them taking dinner? They have no. She's not connected to them. They'll come. They'll tell Shem we want to take our daughter. He's not going to have anybody protect him. They're happy to do that. They're happy to be Moshe Nefesh themselves in order to get them. So now the question is, Shem, are you going to do it or not? And all of a sudden, Vayitvu divrayim b'einei Chamor, and Chamor and Vayinei Shechem ben Chamor, and Chamor and Shechem think it's a terrific idea. They're very happy with it. They're happy to bris everyone. It says the Netziv, Im huta b'dvarim b'einei Chamor, mikol sheken b'nei Shechem. It says if Chamor liked it, how much more shall Shechem would have liked it? So why does it have to tell that both of them? Ela kamo shekasev she'evin she'imol atzmo shuv ena davar rachok kol kach. He realized, Shechem, that if he will have a bris, then it's actually quite possible. Even though the brothers are presenting a certain level of aggression, nonetheless, he says that he understands that if he has the bris milah, then what? It's a kapara al ezek for them. That would be as a kapara, some type of atonement of the fact that he really impinged and inflicted a negative thing on the kavod of Yaakov. Now remember, the kavod that Shechem has and perceives is different from the kavod that Yaakov and his sons and Am Yisrael have. Our kavod is based on our connection of it to the spirituality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, whereas his kavod is based on kavod, on wealth, and all these things. He's seeing it's all going to come together. He's going to be the most mechubadik person in the world because he's married the king. He's married Yaakov's daughter, so the king's daughter. So he says, "V'lo echer hana'ar la'asot hadavar." He didn't hana'ar. He's a young boy. He doesn't stop. He doesn't tarry or delay in any way. La'asot hadavar. Why? Ki chafetz b'bat Yaakov, because he really wants the bat Yaakov. V'hu nichbad mikol beis aviv, and he was the most respected in his father's house. So the Netziv says, the minute he heard this, he went quickly, he got himself a bris, he didn't wait at all. And he becomes so mechubadik, he's like seen as this very important person, and then they come to the gates, and they tell the people at the gates, or the people of this area where they're living, and they say to them, Hanashima ele shleimim mitanu. Oi, gewalt. They say, the people, they shleimim, they beshalom with us. They want to do things in a good way. Vayeshvu ba'aretz. They want to dwell here. Vayisachru esa, and they're going to move around in it. They're going to start businesses here. Va'aretz hinei rechavat yadayim lifneim, and the land is enormous for them. We'll take their wives, their daughters as wives, and we'll give our daughters to them. And it's very interesting that this is the narrative. The narrative that is presented is that they're going to come, they'll do business, and we'll be able to marry their daughters. It's clear that that's what's in their mind. They want to just have this covered and deep connection through family, together with the family of Yaakov. But then he said, we've got a bit of a condition to that. They gave us a deal. It's not so hard, just in the same way as they are. So we also need to have a Brit Milah. It's not the end of the world. It's not something we should worry about. Miknehem, and I'll show you why. You know why? Because we'll be able to miknehem v'kinyanam v'chol behem tam alo lanuhem achneosolahem v'yeshu. But we can get all their wealth. It can become part of our very being. But we just got to do what we have to do, to agree with the terms that they've settled. They listen to Chamor and they listen to Shechem, his son. Everybody. Everybody in the city gets a bris milah. Okay? So now, we're going to see this unfolding by they're there, it's very hard, it's sore, it's terrible for them. They've all just had Brit Milah. We're talking about adult men. It's not the simplest thing in the world, obviously. So the two sons of Yaakov, Shimon and Levi. That is, so it's Reuven, Shimon, Levi. Reuven doesn't have a role to play in this. Shimon and Levi, just those two. And what do they do? Achei Dinah, they are the brothers of Dinah. They are no longer the ones who see Dinah as their daughter, but they see Dinah as their sister. They take Ish Charbor, they each take their sword. They come, nobody prevents them, and they kill every single male. So it's quite amazing. The brothers have this whole discussion, and Shimon and Levi come along, it seems to be on their own, and they kill everybody. They kill every single male that had a bris. It's like we're talking about Shimon and Levi. So let's understand. Remember, Levi is the founder of the Levim, the founder of the Kohen Gadol. We're talking about some serious people here. So what happens? How do they do it? Why do they do it? It's very difficult to understand. Exactly what it is. So the Orach Chaim HaKadosh says, Kashe lama yagu mi shelo chet. Why did he kill everybody? Why these people didn't sin? V'od lama lo yigdimu ba'al haver tchila. So surely, if you're going to kill everybody, you first kill Shem. He's the main guy. He's the one who did the Avera. So he says, no, you know what? Achen hine b'nei Yaakov lo haya b'datim la'arog ela ba'al haver. Ele shekol b'nei ha'ir ratu la'amod b'peretz kenegdam l'ba'al yareg Malka. Remember, he's their king. Shem is the crown prince. So if they're going to come and try and kill Shem, so the Orach Kadosh, the Orach Chaim HaKadosh says the people stood up. They stood up and said, you can't kill our king, and we will defend him. And so therefore, what? Al-Kain Hargam Midin Rodev killed everybody, not because we wanted to kill everybody, but Midin Rodev, they were going to come and kill them. Wow. So it says the Orach Chaim, the fact that they kill all the males, clearly, therefore, they also kill Chamor and Shechem. There's no way that in any other way, they're not killed everybody, that they would not be able to take the revenge against Shechem and Chamor. They were chayav misa. They were chayav to be killed. You're not allowed to rape. It's not a Torah law. It applies to Jews. It's one of the Sheva mitzvahs. But they know you don't defile another woman in that way, in a violent manner. That's not the way you do things. And so therefore, even though she was not an Eshet Ish, she was stolen, she was kidnapped, and because she was kidnapped in the way, in the manner, and the rape, and all those things, therefore they are chayav. All of them are chayav. Not everybody agrees with that, by the way. It's not that there's not absolute agreement, call it, as to why it is that Shechem deserves death. Some said he didn't deserve death at all. Rape is not a capital crime, according to some. Rather, the rapist has to compensate. That's the din min Torah, right? So, whereas the Maaseh Hashem, the Ksav Kabbalah say that Yaakov says that it was absolutely lawless what he did, and therefore it's chayav misa, because that's what you're supposed to do in such a case. Va'et Chamor ve'et Shechem beno hargu lefi charev, and they kill Chamor and Shechem. Va'ikchu et Dinah mibeit Shechem va'yetzeyu, and they take Dinah out of Shechem's house, and they went away. They leave. What's happening with Dinah now? Dinah has now been taken back into her father's house. She's been taken back into this place where she'll be able to start healing. But they didn't stop there. They came up to all the dead bodies. And they plundered the city. They completely plundered the city, which I think is a strange thing. Why did they need to do that? Why did they have to plunder the city? So the Sforno says, because had this thing not been something that they didn't approve of, then Shechem wouldn't have done such a thing. The reason why Shechem was empowered and able to do such a thing is because of the fact that nobody stopped him. Because that's what they used to do. They would take women without any consent whatsoever and rape them and be with them. And by the way, just we'll finish with this. By the way, that is what is so connecting this towards Hanukkah. We understand that on Hanukkah, one of the things that would happen is that the hegemon of the time, the governor of the time, would take the women who before they would get married, or even if they got married before they were able to be with their husbands for the first time, he would rape them. This concept of the showing of the man's power over the woman through aggressive sexual attack is something that has always been an issue in the world, and it's a display of power, and the the Netziv and others of the commentaries clearly shout out against a society that allows such a thing to happen. So much so that they're saying that they were deserving of having all the spoils of war, the spoils of the city being plundered, because they didn't stand up for it. That was their punishment for not making their voices heard in the face of such an atrocity. They took everything, all their wealth. They took everything. They enslaved their women and their children. Yaakov sees what happens, and he says to Shimon and Levi, you brought trouble on me, right? People are going to make me thinking that I'm always going to wage war on the people that are living in Yoshev Aretz, the Knanim and the Prizim, all these people that are living there. They're all going to be saying, we better take war, we take up arms against this man. I don't have many people. They're going to come and try and beat me. And they'll destroy my household. It comes on the brothers and they say, would you want that our daughter should be treated as a zonah? What is a zonah? A zonah is a woman, we know, who's paid to have to give men sexual pleasure. Is that what you want for our daughter? Is that what's okay for you? You're worried about yourself, but you don't see that what they've done here in such a terrible way. So the question is, what is Yaakov so worried about? So the way the Netziv presents, he says that you've put me in a very uncomfortable position. The discomfort I'm feeling is that I've always presented myself as a person of Ahavat Shalom. And because I had Ahavat Shalom of trying to only pursue peace all the time, therefore I was always confident in the places where I lived. I worked on my Shalom, I worked on my relationships. What you've done is you've undermined all of those relationships. And they say to them, there's a bigger value. There's a much bigger value than your Shalom. What's the bigger value is the hefkerus, the total lack of kavod that is given to our daughter, to Dina. And so there, if that's the case, if you don't react, if we hadn't reacted in such a way, they always would have seen her as this. But now that they see that we will not tolerate such a thing, we've kind of redeemed ourselves from the feelings that we had before, where the people weren't scared of us. The people didn't have the appropriate kavod. Was it the right way to get kavod because they went and they killed them all? That's a different discussion. But what they certainly have done is that they've renewed and re-imbued themselves with the kavod that they felt that they had lost after they'd heard of the attack of Dinah. So I thought that would just give a bit of perspective, something on this parsha. I know it was a bit of a strange topic to choose, but sometimes we don't always go into these things, and I just thought it would be nice to give a little bit more perspective. Hope you enjoyed it, guys. I think this will be our last year, if you don't mind, as school holidays begin next week. And Bezrat Hashem,